Now, before you keep scrolling, this is the part 26 to learning your rights, to learning the Constitution, and learning these Supreme Court rulings. The policeman and the corporate enforcement officer. The policeman has a duty under common law to serve and protect and uphold the common law. The police officer, fiction, is a corporate employee, a revenue collector who enforces statute. You are in common law jurisdiction. This means that no civil law statute applies unless you consent to it. Police are a company which exists to make profit. They profit from you by enforcing statutes on you, not laws, policy. The basic principle of the great writ of habeas corpus is that in a civilized society, government must always be accountable to the judiciary for a man's imprisonment. If the imprisonment cannot be shown to conform with the fundamental requirements of law, the individual is entitled to his immediate release. 372 U.S. 399 through 402. These codes and statutes are policy, and only a police officer can enforce statute, which is policy. But a policeman has a duty under common law to serve and protect and uphold common law. When they're bringing you into these courtrooms, the first question that you need to ask, on the record after informing the court that you're there by special appearance for this all caps name for your corporate name. According to the Constitution, there are two types of jurisdiction: maritime admiralty law and common law. And for the record, can you please state which jurisdiction this court is operating under? Peace.
Most everybody didn't sign their own Social Security number. It was gotten for them by their parents. So you have the right to cancel that contract. And it is a contract for benefits. They'll say it's not, but it is. It's an application for benefits. And any application is a contract. I don't want anything from the federal government because I don't want them in my hip pocket for the rest of my life. I don't want anything. And anything you paid into Social Security, you can get back if you want to get it back. Yes, you can get it back, but there's only one specific way you can do it. But you have to be prepared to go all the way. You don't start a battle and then turn tail and run at the last minute. You know what I mean? Just be prepared to move forward all the way down the line. You have to file in a court of claims. And if you prevail at the court of claims, then you will automatically get all the income tax money since day one refunded back to you, plus interest. Because governments wrote many letters stating if you don't have a Social Security number, you would have no taxable income. When you got your Social Security number, how many people were told you were giving up your sovereignty? How many people were told you're giving up all your rights? How many people were told that you were giving up your right of inheritance? How many people told you you're giving up the right to work to accept a privilege? You know what I mean? How many people were told that when you got your Social Security number, you were asking for government supervision? How many people were told when you got your Social Security number, you'd pay 52% of your salary for the rest of your life to the government? Yes, 3 to 5 years, depending on how well. One guy in Florida did it, it took him 9 months. Guy followed him up, took him 4 years. You know what I mean? Follow the same suit, you know what I mean? Depends on how you set your case up. You have to set them up. You do your letter writing campaign. You follow me, and you do this and you do that. You set them up so that you have all the evidence on your side. And once you have them set up, then you can move forward. I was going to talk about citizenship a lot tonight, so I brought my big book on citizenship. I was going to talk a lot about citizenship. How many people have heard of the U.S. Constitution? There's dirt under my feet. It doesn't apply to me. I got several court cases say the U.S. Constitution doesn't apply except to the federal government. It doesn't apply to the state government. It only applies to the state government through the 14th Amendment. So anytime you use the U.S. Constitution, then you are accepting the benefits and privileges of the 14th Amendment. Unless you're in federal court. If you're in federal court, then you can use it all the way down the line. But in state court, you cannot, unequivocally, you cannot use the U.S. Constitution.
I was going to say, by extension, you wouldn't want to use federal case citations and such either.
No, you don't use federal cases in state court because that also brings in the 14th Amendment. It only applies to the 14th Amendment.
They'll drag you there.
Oh, yeah, yes, they will. They'll try to drag you over there. One of the key things you have to learn and remember is that the courts have all said that the state constitution is the sky's the limit on your rights. The federal Constitution is the floor. So you want the bare basics or you want the unlimited side? So use the state constitution. They don't like it when you use the state constitution because they know where you're going. They can't overrule the state constitution. In fact, our California Supreme Court, in several cases in the past few years, have overturned the United States Supreme Court because the state, based upon the state constitution, they can reverse the United States Supreme Court. And the United States Supreme Court, what they say, we can't touch the case. It's on the state constitution. So you use the state constitution all the time. And you have the ceiling, you know what I mean? Your rights are unlimited under the state constitution. Because the state constitution was written as a restriction and limitation on the state government. The U.S. Constitution was written as a restriction and limitation on the federal government. So when you understand the proper application of the constitutions, you can distinguish them out. Do you follow me? And just apply them appropriately on either side, whichever way is appropriate. How many people heard the word state? Yeah, a few people raised their hand. Some people didn't. Have never heard the word state. State has two separate and legal meanings, depending on how it's used. And the case that they all qualify and state and refer to is Texas versus White, United States Supreme Court, 1862. In that court case, the United States Supreme Court stated, a small s state consists of land, people, and government. A capital S state occupies the land and has people and government. What occupies can be removed, but consists of, small s is consists of. Just like this writing on this paper here, it occupies this paper. It can be, I can take a pencil and erase it off. You follow me? But the paper itself is the small s state. It consists of, to create this paper, consists of people, government, and land. So when they say the small s state, that's a fiction created by the people. So it's always a small s state. I live in a small s state. I'm not subject to the capital S state. I'm subject to all the laws created by the small s state, because that's what we the people created. So knowing the distinction, someplace along the line somebody's going to ask you a question, you know what I mean? Are you subject to state laws? Define state. Are you subject to this? Define what you mean. What they've done a marvelous job, and I have to thank the government, they did a marvelous job. They have multiple meanings for all the words. They did. They have their own specific meaning, legal meaning that they use against you. Like the best one I can think of off the top of my head, without going to my notes, is the word employee. Employee has 5 different meanings in the dictionary. Number 1, one who works for somebody. Number 5, one who works for the federal government. So when you sign a W-4, it's an admission you work for the federal government, as this definition down here, subject to all federal laws. It's just that simple. They don't tell you that, because you think it's this one up here. When you sign an employment application, it's this definition up here. When you sign that W-4, you now switch to this, there's that definition down here. And it was redefined in 1939 under, write this down, the 1939 Public Salary Tax Act. Redefined the term employee to mean federal government worker. Very simple. They always tell you the truth consistently.
What's the Texas White citation?
I don't know, it's 1862. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Maybe in the back of this book here. Let me see if I can find it for you here. 74 U.S. 227. Repeating, 74 U.S. 227. That's Texas versus White.
I was today years old when I found out.
The judges are told to not recognize allodial titles.
And what are allodial titles?
Basically, people are familiar with the patent process. These are royal land patents, of which say I'm alive in the 1840s. I apply for this royal land patent. I receive the royal land patent. I am the patent holder. If I chose to sell my patent to you, you become the patent holder. But if I die without selling my patent, future generations of my lineage can only sell, trade, lease their lifetime investment in this. So, you know, in Europe, you have the towers where they always kept the prisoner in the tower. Well, the reason that they did that was because as long as that person in the tower was alive, right? If you have the allodial title and I take over your lands, as long as you alive, I can control your lands. The moment you die, it goes to your heirs. So my goal is to keep you alive as long as I can and to smite out all your heirs. Because that's basically how these titles become available, is there's no heirs. You can only sell your lifetime interest. You can only trade your lifetime interest, which means if I inherited this from my grandfather and I sell it to you, the moment I die, it goes back to the family. This is how Europe, this is how, you know, King Charles, the new king, this is how dude has all these lands for 1,000 years because it's all this allodial title. And when his mom died, guess what? All the lands that she leased and or had sold goes back to him.
You don't own land. Nobody owns anything.
Yeah, right.
But if you want to own the land and actually own it so that even God can't touch it, you have to buy the property or the car or the jet plane, whatever it is you're buying. You have to get it under allodial title. A-L-L-O-D-I-A-L. Allodial. Allodial title, you can buy a car, you can buy a jet plane, you can buy a house, but you buy it under what is called a allodial title. If you buy a house or buy your property, you can put it in a allodial title. That means if the freeway is coming through and they want your property, they cannot touch it.
If you win, they are required to pay you. That's the rules. If you lose, you pay. Because they don't like people like you. Because you're an American. And Americans don't give up. They never surrender and they fight. The prosecutor said, "Sir," he said, "what can I do for you?" He said, "Well, it's not what you can do for me. I'm the prosecutor. What do you want to do in this case?" "Well, I assumed there was something I could do for you. You called me in here." "Well, what do you want to do? How do you want to plead on your case?" "Well, I don't intend to plead, sir. I intend to answer in the form of a demurrer, such that I do not acquiesce to quasi-jurisdiction, because that's an issue to be brought up in my pleadings and briefs to file with the court." The guy's mouth was on the ground. He said, "Are you an attorney, sir?" He says, "No, I'm a truck driver." The guy absolutely was in a panic. See, they don't anticipate that people that are in other jobs other than theirs have any brains. And it blows their doors off when all of a sudden this bricklayer or this truck driver can come in and argue law, and all of a sudden it's like, shoot, this guy is good. I have to treat him like he's an attorney. So what did this guy do? The first thing he does out of the chute, he walks up to the judge and he tells the judge, he says, "Judge, I'm going to dismiss this case." Because he realized he was going to get hammered. And my guy says, "He can't do that. I took day off work to come over here and battle." I told him, I said, "Shut up, sit down and relax. You won. Don't say nothing. You won." And the judge broke out laughing because this guy didn't want to quit. The judge turned to him and he said, "Well, evidently the prosecutor doesn't want to proceed, sir. I'm going to have to dismiss the case. He is the complainant." "Can he do that, Judge? He can't do that. I'm here to battle. I want to go. Let's do it." And the judge laughed again. He says, "Well, apparently, sir, I cannot sustain a complaint that is not properly before the court. Counsel for prosecution has entered a motion to dismiss, and I have no other option but to dismiss. Now, if you want to countersue him, that's another case." "Well, I'll do that. I'll do that." In the meantime, I told him, "Will you be quiet and submit your bill? Submit your bill. You won. Submit your bill for your damages." So he did. He said, "Well, I'll submit my bill then, Your Honor, for my costs and fees for having to defend this frivolous case." And the judge smiled, because people don't usually do that. So the bottom line is this. When you file your papers and they turn around and you get a win, make sure you got your little bill in there for your lost time from work, or any copies that you had to make, or any visits to the law library, or any what is called real and personal damages. And don't pad the account. Put down exactly what you got, because if they force you to prove it, you can get busted for perjury. So I don't recommend you shall we say, stretch the pad. I recommend you put down exactly what your costs are. Believe me, the fact that they got beats plenty enough of a sting, and the fact they got to pay a couple $100 for your lost day at work will be more of a sting. And one judge told me one time, he said, "You got any kind of idea how much money you've cost this court today?" And I said, "I hope it was a bunch, Your Honor, because I hope you got to go write a whole bunch more tickets to break even." Sooner the public's going to wake up to this theft, and maybe they'll start doing something positive to stop this kind of stuff. Cause
can't be a citizen of a corporation. That is impossible. There's no such thing as a citizen of a corporation. Corporations don't have anything in them that are alive. They just don't. So they created the 14th Amendment for their corporation. Now, the U.S. Constitution is corporate bylaws of Corporation United States. Where did it come from? They stole the amendments, or borrowed them is another way of saying it. They borrowed the amendments and the articles from the Constitution of the United States and adopted it as the corporate bylaws of this new phony corporation. Now, they wanted to get you guys to be citizens of the corporation, but since there is a God and common law ties to the Creator God, they had to get you dead. So by putting your name in all capital letters in the English language, you are judicially dead. I looked at these attorneys and I said, "Why is my name capital D, capital A, capital V, capital I, capital D?" Oh, we don't know. We were taught that in law school. Kind of intriguing. When I joined the U.S. Navy, my name was capital D, capital D, small a, small v, small I, small d, normal, capital R, small o, small l, small a, small n, small d, comma, capital H, capital I, capital N, capital K, capital S, capital O, capital N. What the heck for? We go to the post office. You know, the post office used to be called the Postal Service of the United States of America. They changed the name of it. The U.S. Navy was the Naval Forces of the United States of America. What is citizenship? Citizenship comes from the word territory. If I'm a citizen of the United States, that means I live in the 10 miles square. If I'm a citizen of the United States of America, according to the, and I've read back Supreme Court rulings that go back to day one, that's a citizen who might live in Alabama. The of America denotes you reside outside of the 10 miles square. So if I go in here and I reverse it, a U.S. citizen is not a citizen of the U.S. That's a reverse. They've reversed the whole sentence. So if a U.S. citizen is somebody who lives in the 10 miles square, and a citizen of the United States of America is somebody who lives outside the 10 miles square, what's a U.S. citizen? Well, that's somebody who lives in a piece of paper. That's somebody who's got a phony-ass corporate contract stapled to his butt. That's who that is. The 14th Amendment's a fraud. It says you won't question the debt. They were picking on the tobacco companies. They got a good lawyer, made some good arguments showing that the 10 mile square is the only place they had jurisdiction. Now they're backing off on the tobacco. I got a copy of that lawsuit. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the media never talked about it. Hire a great attorney, they'll make a great argument for you. The 7th Amendment's right smack in the middle of the U.S. Constitution, the phony one. The one everybody thinks is their prize and possession here. We have 2 of every state before Abe Lincoln. We have the state of California, which is a subcorporation of the U.S. corporation, and we have the California Republic. But do you think the dragon, Satanists, would keep the capital in the same place? Every single state moved its capital. The capital of Utah is not Salt Lake City, it's Fillmore. The capital of Colorado is not Denver, it's Canyon City. The capital of California is not Sacramento, it's Los Angeles. The capital of Idaho is Lewiston. It's not Boise. So they're so afraid, these Satanists, they're so afraid they have to have a whole different building, move it to a whole different city. And just to make sure you guys don't put your name correctly, so you might have your judicial common law rights back, they'll ask you to put your last name first on every application, just to make sure you do it correctly.
Because in maritime courts, Corporations can only contract with other corporations. A lawyer can only represent you as a corporation. And let me ask you a question, Ann. Can your corporation run a red light?
No, my corporation cannot run a red light.
No. So he's giving you an affidavit of fiction because he works for a legal fiction and he's trying to get you to respond to the legal fiction. And if he can't get you to respond to the legal fiction, he can't contract with you. In that case, what you want to do is let him commit the crime. We're going to operate on acceptance. Not that we're trying to trap him or anything. We're just trying to educate him, right? So the first thing you can ask a police officer is, excuse me, sir, are you attempting to traffic my person? And the person is the all caps corporation, okay? And he's going to say no because he doesn't know better, and that's okay. But what he's ultimately doing is he's giving you a ticket, an affidavit of fiction, and that's got a 30-day notice. You've got a choice to show up at court, right? You know that if you don't show up at court, you're presumed guilty, right? And you know that they're going to then sell that as a debt instrument. But what you don't know is that in every court case, they're going to open up a trust in your name. Now, did you give them permission to do that?
And I did not.
No. And then what they're going to do is they're going to put 3 bonds in that trust. They're going to put a bid, a performance, and a payment bond in there. And then they're going to basically trade you on through your Sesta KV trust, which you didn't even know you had, and they're going to make anywhere from $2 to $5 million per traffic violation. And technically, in the background, they are then selling those as debt instruments. The courts are selling them as debt instruments up to the Treasury.
That's right.
So they're making good money on issuing traffic violations, and that's why they have a quota. So what you could do is you could turn around and grab an affidavit of truth, because in an affidavit of truth, it's all common law. So you leave the court systems completely behind because they're all corrupt at this point. They're all just administrative maritime courts. And what you can do is you can operate. So imagine you're on a playing field down here, Ann, and this is maritime. We're going to take it to a playing field up here. And by the way, the playing field down here, we're like in the football field, and we're all the way back to the 1-yard line because no one ever taught us how to play offense. But I'm about to take you to a football field right above that. You're going to fly right over to the end zone because you're operating in truth, and no one can rebut truth. So you're going to give them words that no man can gainsay. And in your affidavit of truth, you're going to say in that affidavit, there is no evidence that you didn't just hold me at gunpoint and attempt to traffic my person. There's no evidence that you're not working for a foreign corporation. There's no evidence that you are actually, in fact, a police or policy enforcer for the original republic. There is no evidence that you haven't signed an oath or have signed an oath to we the people, right? So what we are going to do with this affidavit of truth is we're reasonable. It's a negotiable instrument. So this officer can choose to either sign an oath to we the people, or he can choose to resign. He can do anything he wants. He can negotiate this instrument. But technically, he's taking a personal liability with every single ticket that he issues because he is working for a crime syndicate. And because he doesn't know that, that's okay. But in common law, every single man or woman is accountable for their deeds on this earth. So they have to be notified. So you put them on notice. So in your affidavit of truth, not only should it have documentaries to wake this officer up and let him know what's really going on, because again, he's probably a good guy, doesn't know what's going on. But in this affidavit of truth, you can let him know that there are all these things he has to rebut. In other words, he has to prove. You're giving him you're forcing burden of proof back on him that he has in fact signed an oath to we the people. And he hasn't, so he cannot prove otherwise. And when you put it in a negative advertement statement, you're basically saying there is no evidence to show that you did not just do this. Now, this is a very powerful statement. A negative advertement statement is very different than asking them for burden of proof. I'm not saying, hey, under burden of proof, prove to me you didn't just do this. Prove to me there wasn't bank fraud. Under burden of proof, prove to me that you didn't just willingly traffic my person. They can't prove that. But if you say there is no evidence, you're asking him to come to a court of record with evidence. You're forcing him to prove his innocence. So you're saying there's no evidence to prove you didn't just hold me at gunpoint. Okay? And which is extortion. It's forced law. Okay? So when you do this, again, in your affidavit of truth, you give him a timeline. He's got 30 days to seek a trial by peers or to cure, or he is now personally liable. And you can rack up these charges to about $1 million a pop. So if some of the people knew this right now and they were serving affidavits back to police officers, we're really just flipping the playbook. And at that point, this becomes a debt instrument.